Hello there, YouTube. It's Kurt here. Today I want to talk about some new Shaddolls zombie decks that are floating around right now, and I just want to expand upon what these can actually do in terms of power and viability. Now, I think this is actually might be more viable than your typical Shaddolls build, because when you're blinding second, you actually have so many incredible options to just super poly away boards, or just activate Zombie World and do typical zombie plays from there, and it gives you some interesting control options. And this build actually gives you a lot of recursion. Weirdly enough, this deck is just so insanely good, and I want to talk about how this might differ from other builds. So actually, there aren't that. I only seen one other deck profile of a Shaddolls zombie build on YouTube, and it has no commentary on it. And I think this could actually be an extremely viable deck in the upcoming format. Now we know Shaddolls Invoke just took second. I believe second at the UDS, and the thing is, this deck is a lot more budget. Right now, if you want to get invocations, they're going to be really costly, whereas if you get a couple zombie horde structure decks, well, you can just sort of slam that together with your Shaddolls structure decks, and you'll have a really consistent engine. And I don't want to understate this whatsoever. You can play around with this build, of course. Right now, this is the build I'm working with. I'm playing your typical zombie engine, minus a couple extra cards that you don't need. Just one Mizuki, or sorry, I'm recording this differently. One Mizuki, no Gozuki. I think I have that right. And also we have, of course, Super Poly and the 6 copies of different Shaddolls fusions. And I think, honestly, with the other builds, playing 12 fusion spells might be just a little bit over the top and giving you a little bit of an unnecessary amount. Whereas this build is much more dedicated to blinding second and just having so many options to work with. And we also have Ash. These Ash could be other things. They could be other hand traps that you could use for your Shaddolls fusion targets. But instead of going with jugglers, I just like 1 or 2 effective healer. That's personally what I prefer. And then the extra deck, we of course have a copy of Vampire Sucker, and then we have almost every Shaddolls fusion that there is, and also we have a couple other techs that may come up here and there. But mostly it's the Shaddolls fusion cards. We also have Cloth Heap in there, and we also have Appaloosa. And Appaloosa can come up, but honestly the Shaddolls cards themselves are so good that they just make up for any other weaknesses that you might have in the extra deck, and there's a lot of room to play with there. Now, don't get me wrong, this deck has weaknesses here. Obviously, if your opponent shuts off your graveyard with something like Dark Law is going to hurt the deck a lot, but a lot of times you can super poly their board away anyway. So it's there. Honestly, going into Master Rule 5, I think a card like Super Poly will absolutely have to go back to 1 or just be banned, because in Master Rule 5, this will just be way too insanely good. Going second, you're going to have 6 cards. Chances are they're going to be really powerful. The bricks are far and few between. Your bricks will be a lot of times maybe a couple copies of Unizombie, your too many Ash Blossoms, even though we're not running many hand traps. And honestly, you do kind of lose to control boards some of the time as well, even though this deck is really good at recursion. If you face one interruption from a Solemn Strike or a Solemn Judgment, it could be game over, and that's the disadvantage here. But you do have such a great matchup against any other playstyle, and you do have room to run things like Lightning Storm going second. That's also a card, so I threw 2 copies. You can play 3 copies of that, and other removal as well. And you also have removal potentially in the form of Shaddolls Dragon. So with that in mind, I will get to a couple of replays here. And again, I actually misplay kind of heavily in both these replays as I'm still getting used to the deck, but these replays are supposed to show just how high the ceiling can be on this deck and just how ridiculous some of your options can be. Now, keep that in mind while you watch these replays. Yes, I'm going to misplay, but you're also going to see some really powerful plays and interactions that could give this deck a lot of gas, and on top of it, be really budget. You don't have to play things like Appaloosa. You don't have to play expensive cards. You can honestly build this deck for the price of basically 3 structure decks. The money cards, they're really, yeah, 3 or 4 or 5 structure decks. You could take 3 Shadoll structure decks and 2 Zombie Horde, and you have the deck good to go right there. And that's going to be a lot more budget than other options, and it's going to be insanely good against a lot of top meta strategies. So thanks, guys. Thanks for viewing the profile, and here's the replays. They might be going on while I'm speaking here because I record separately. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and hopefully I'll be back with more videos. Peace.